Thank you, Mr. President. I rise for a point of personal privilege.
Senator has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today, on January 15th, we remember the life of Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. on the anniversary of his birth 91 years ago. We remember his life and legacy, and in particular, his dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. Dr. King spoke often and eloquently of a harmonious future. Central to his message was the idea of the beloved community. As described by the King Center in Atlanta, in the beloved community, poverty, hunger, and homelessness will not be tolerated because international standards of decency will not allow it. Racism and all forms of discrimination, bigotry, and prejudice will be replaced by an all-inclusive spirit of sisterhood and brotherhood. In the beloved community, international disputes will be resolved by peaceful conflict resolution and reconciliation of adversaries instead of military power. Love and trust will triumph over fear and hatred. Peace and justice will triumph over war and military conflict. His words and his vision and his true belief in a peaceful and just future still bring us hope today, more than 50 years after his death. But Dr. King, however much he believed in a better future, did not put his faith solely in the future to solve the problems of his lifetime. Today, to remember and celebrate his dream alone is to miss his full message. Dr. King worked tirelessly to upend the status quo. He planned and organized campaigns. He encouraged and enabled African-American voter registration and political involvement. He paved the way for the enactment of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. He co-founded and led the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, and he preached a message of love and nonviolence. He spoke out against the war that was dividing the country, and he fought deeply entrenched segregation and economic inequity. His words and actions spoke of the necessity of doing this work out of the fierce urgency of now. For all his hopes for the future, he was intensely aware that such a future would not be given to us, but created by our actions in the present. As he described it, we are now faced with the fact, my friends, that tomorrow is today. We are confronted with the fierce urgency of now. In this unfolding conundrum of life and history, there is such a thing as being too late. Procrastination is still the thief of time. Life often leaves us standing bare, naked, and dejected with a lost opportunity. The tide in the affairs of men does not remain at flood, it ebbs. We may cry out desperately for time to pause in her passage, but time is adamant to every plea and rushes on. This past year afforded Virginians an opportunity to look back over 400 years of history to 1619, when the first enslaved Africans arrived at Point Comfort. Looking back at these 400 years, there is a clear arc of progress, from slavery to emancipation, to Reconstruction, to the eventual dismantling of legal Jim Crow and segregation of institutions. We find ourselves closer to the beloved community than we ever were before, but every step towards it has been made possible by the realization of the fierce urgency of now. It is an urgency felt by Virginians who have shaped our history, from Dred Scott, who sued for his freedom and that of his family, Mary Jane Richard Bowser, who spied for the Union in the household of Jefferson Davis, by Richmond Planet editor John Mitchell Jr. when he exposed and campaigned against racial terror, lynchings, and segregation, Rosa Dixon Bowser, who founded the first African American Teachers Association and fought for women's suffrage, and countless others who acted in their time to secure a better future for others. Each gain that we celebrate in our history has been made by those who have understood the fierce urgency of action in the present. Today, in a complex and highly polarized world, the beloved community hinges on what we do now. We have the option to work to bridge the gaps that divide our communities, to bring compassion into our discourse, to acknowledge our history, painful though it may be, and learn from it, to strive for reconciliation, and to be open to reconciliation when others offer it. Dr. King said the arc of the moral universe is long and bends towards justice, but he knew it didn't do it alone. He said these words not with a blind faith that it would happen, but with the example before him of thousands upon thousands of people who at that time and times before fought for civil rights. In remembering his life today, we draw hope from his dream for our future. But if we are truly to honor Dr. King, we need to do as he did and use the present to shape our world into the beloved community that he envisioned. And so, Mr. President, I move that when the Senate adjourns today, it does so in the honor and memory of Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr.